This time we invite all of our children who wish to come and sit up front here for the homily to come and sit. And even if you're in your beautiful gown from First Communion, you can come and sit on the steps, huh? So any of our children who want to come. And as the youngsters come, I'll tell the old kids who are sitting back here, when you ask these young people questions, you never ever know what you're going to get. Now, yesterday at First Holy Communion, I asked a question, how do you know who somebody is? And one of the third graders sitting towards the back, I went over, he said, well, the best way would be through face recognition. Handed him the microphone, continue, So we don't know what we're going to get, but it's going to be great, okay? How we doing, everybody? Good. All right. So today we celebrate a beautiful day of Easter, and something that happens every Easter through the readings, and I've said this every Sunday at Mass, is we're kind of reminded of basic things, very basic things. And it's written that way in the readings to help those of us who are newly baptized, and we have at least one at Mass who I baptized at the Easter Vigil. And the newly baptized to continue to learn more about their faith. And it helps all of us who've been in it for a little while to remember a little bit more about our faith. And today there's two big words that we all know, but one of them is a little harder of a word. Two big words that we have to think about from the readings. The first word, which is the harder one, who has ever heard the word humility? To be humble, humility. Okay, so who wants to give me a definition of the word? They're pleading the Fifth Amendment. Humility means to be humble. That is right. So something that we do to be humble. Anybody have an idea what it means to be humble? We have a couple more hands. What does it mean to be humble? Yeah.
It means to be kind to others and let them go first.
Well, that's a great example of how we're humble, to be kind to others, let them go first, right? And what were you going to say? Okay, I'm telling you, I'm ready to hand the microphone back over again. So, to put the needs of others before yourself, and what was the second part you said? And don't only care about yourself, okay? Very good definition of humility. One more hand.
To be wise about something.
To be wise about something. Yes, humility brings wisdom, doesn't it? You're absolutely right. If we're humble, we're usually pretty wise, right? So when we think about being humble, us old kids, would we agree to be humble means we kind of put others ahead of ourselves, right? We don't make ourselves out to be more than we are, right? Do we agree, old kids? We do. Okay, I got to make sure they're staying awake, And so to be humble means we put other people before ourselves. That's what it means to be humble. Now, today we celebrate the Blessed Mother, right? How was the Blessed Mother humble? What was the most important thing she did that showed how humble she was? Here's a new hand.
She didn't get selfish when she was given the gift to have Jesus Christ, the Son of God, born.
That's right. She was not selfish. She wasn't thinking of herself when God asked her to be the mother of Jesus, right? Mary didn't say, yeah, well, God, I'd like to help you out, but I'd rather do these things, right? She said yes, correct? So that was humble, putting God first, right? And so part of humility, of course, for all of us is always to put God first. To put God first. That's to be humble. And all through Mary's life, we saw that Mary was humble. So after Mary gave birth to Jesus, What's the next time we see Mary? Does anybody remember the next time we see her? Right after Jesus is born, Mary and Joseph take Jesus where? Right after he's born? To the temple, right? To be dedicated, right? And Simeon and Anna were there, and they were saying all these wonderful things about Jesus, right? And did Mary go off with Joseph and tell all of their friends, do you know how great we are because we were picked to be his parents? No. Because they were humble, right? And what did we hear Mary did? She
baptized Jesus and she didn't brag.
Well, she didn't brag. She kept all those things in her heart, right? We hear that. She thought about all those wonderful things in her heart. And then when we come to the end of Jesus' life, when Jesus is carrying the cross, what did Mary do when Jesus was carrying the cross? Anybody know? What did she do?
It's basically a cross that has his face on it.
Well, that was another Mary who was a friend of Mary, Blessed Mother Mary. That would have been Mary Magdalene, right? Yes, that happened, absolutely. That was a humble thing to do, putting someone else first. What else? How was Mary? What did she do at that time? She was there, right? Did Mary go up to the soldiers and beat on them and say, why are you doing this to my son? No, she didn't do that, right? She didn't do that. And why? Because being humble, she knew God would take care of her, right? Does that make sense? Does that make sense for the old kids? Okay. So to be humble means we put other people first, right? Now, what's another example of being humble? I'm going to give you the answer because we do have 12 o'clock Mass and we have to make sure that starts on time. And we all know I like to talk. Who thinks I like to talk? Old kids, what is your vote? I like to talk, right? You all know that. So, all right. How many of you have ever had to ask your moms or dads or your grandparents or an older brother or sister to help you with something? Right? Pretty much all of us. We all had to do that, right? Do you think that's being humble? Yeah, it's kind of humble, isn't it? So humility is putting other people first, but humility is also saying, you know, I really could use your help, right? That's being humble. Now I'm going to tell you a story. Some of you old kids maybe heard me tell this story because I've told it before, but I have a whole new young audience, you know, and so I'm going to show you something that is very important to me. This is one of the most important things that I own. Do you see what this is? And do you see what this is? It's one of the most important things that I own. And I'm going to tell you why this is one of the most important things that I own. It's a picture. On one side is who? Mary. And on the other side is who? Jesus. Right? For the old kids, you know, it's just a little photo thing of Jesus and Mary. And this was always on my mother's dresser. How many of you have a dresser with your clothes in your room, right? So it was always sat on top of my mother's dresser. It was always there. And one time when I was in, I think 3rd grade, maybe 4th, that I don't remember, if it was 3rd or 4th grade, the unthinkable thing happened, which was not allowed. I failed a science test. I will not ask if you ever failed a test. We'll leave that on the down low. But I failed a science test. And I remember the next time I had a science test. How do you think I felt that morning getting ready for school? How did I feel? Scared? Nervous? Scared and nervous? Jittery? What? Humble. Yeah, I got a lot of humility out of failing that test. What is it? Worried and what is it? Fretful. There's a good word. All of the above. You are all correct. And so I remember my mother took me into her bedroom before I left for school, and we stood in front of her dresser in front of this very picture, and my mother said to me, we are going to pray and we're going to ask Blessed Mother Mary, Jesus' mother, to ask Jesus to help you on your test today. And then my mother also said, after all, what good son wouldn't do everything his mother asks? Now, old kids, how many of you think there was a double meaning there? There was a double meaning, I think. There was a double meaning. I got like 100 on that test. Now, I also studied. I don't think it was magic. But all of those things you said, from frightful to nervous and anxious and worried, all of that kind of went away. And why? Because in humility, I asked for help. So the most important thing we do sometimes, not only do we ask our moms, our dads, our older brothers and sisters and grandparents for help, but we turn to Mary, we ask her for help. So, one more way that we're humble, and it comes from the readings. We heard about St. Peter, and St. Peter in the reading today, we heard that Cornelius came and knelt before him. Remember hearing that? Cornelius came and knelt in front of Peter. Now, Cornelius was a very important man. He was a leader in the military. He was a very powerful man. And Simon Peter, what did he say when Cornelius came? Did Simon Peter say, finally somebody has realized that I am the leader and rock of the church? Thank goodness you're kneeling in front of me. How many of you think that's what he said? How many of you think that's not what he said? It's not what he said, is it, huh? Simon Peter didn't say, you know, Jesus picked me to be in charge. At least you have realized that nobody else did. Did he say that? What did he say? He said, stand up, I'm only a human too. Humility. When sometimes people maybe give us praise and thanks for what we do, and that's a good thing. We give that praise and thanks back to who? To God, right? To God. So humility means we put other people first. Humility means that we ask for that help. And humility means that when people give us praise, we accept it. We say, thank you for acknowledging that, but I give that praise to God. So for our young people sitting right here, you're going to get a little homework assignment. I want you to think, what is one thing you can do this week to be humble, to show that you love someone? Because that's the other word in the readings, huh? Love. We heard about that in the second reading, and we heard about it in the gospel, to love. So I want you to think about one thing that you can do, maybe to make somebody else feel real important, something that you can do maybe to help someone else without anybody even asking. Anybody got an idea what you could do to make somebody else feel important, or something you could help with without even asking? What do you think? Holding a door for someone if they're in a wheelchair. Sometimes we try to rush in so we don't get slowed down, right? But the better thing would be to slow down and hold that open for them, right? Help your mom cooking. Now, I have not tasted your cooking, so hopefully that is a good thing, but I'm sure you're a good cook, so that'll be good. Help your mom with something around the house, right? And what else? Clean up. That is always a good one. I might do that at the rectory too. Clean up, okay? So think about something that you can do to be humble, to help someone, to maybe make somebody feel good about themselves, to go out of your way to thank somebody, or to show that you really love them. Make sense? For us older kids, a couple things to think about. Remember that Peter was very humble in that reading. So your homework assignment is going to magically appear on the board, so you can pull out your camera and take a picture of it. So why is humility important for us, huh? When we share the gospel. To share the gospel isn't just to teach the words, we have to show that we're living them. So why is humility important in teaching the gospel, particularly all of you who are teaching all of them? Also, number 2, God shows no partiality. We heard that in the readings. And sometimes as older kids, we can show partiality, can't we? And we can almost play favorites. So is there some aspect of your life where there's partiality? And if so, what is it that you can do this week to change? And then finally, John, in the second reading of the gospel, reminds us that we have to love, right? We have to love. And so a simple question, is there someone in your life that you can express that love to? In a very simple way, just as I asked our young people here what they can do to be showing humility and love, for us older kids too. What is that thing we can do? You know, for all of us in life, there's probably that person, aunt, uncle, who's in a nursing home who we say, yeah, someday I'm going to go visit them, and we never do. Maybe you do it this week and let them know how much you love them and what they've done for you. Maybe there's an individual we need to forgive, or maybe there's somebody we have to ask them to forgive us. Well, this week, do that. I'm going to end with one more story, and that story, back when I was vocation director, we got a phone call at the office. You never like getting phone calls at the office about the newly ordained priest. That was usually not a good thing. And one day I got a call about one of our newly ordained priests, and it came from one of the parishioners in the parish where he was assigned. Thankfully, it was a good call. And the woman said, this newly ordained priest gave an awesome homily on forgiveness. And I was so moved that when I left church, I didn't even go home. I drove 4 hours to Pittsburgh to my sister, whom I have not spoken to in years, and I went and I asked her for her forgiveness. Pretty awesome. This week, let's all do something in humility. Let's all do something to show we love. And not only for our youngsters to do it, but for us youngsters here also to do the same. I'm going to end with a quote from my buddy. Who's my buddy? Blessed Carlo Acutis, right? And there's a beautiful quote that Blessed Carlo Acutis has about Mary. Each time we address the Mother of God, we place ourselves in direct and immediate contact with heaven. Whenever we go to Mary to ask her for help, we're right in the immediate contact with heaven. Whenever we love or we do something humble, we are in immediate contact with heaven, particularly when we rely on the intercession of our Blessed Mother, Mary. We're going to ask our children to go back to your parents at this time, and if you brought flowers, to get them and go back to the front doors of the church where people from Family Faith are. If you didn't bring flowers, we got some, and we're going to now have our children come forward to bring their flowers and to also crown the statue of Mary.